All right, so we might get started. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to our International Earth Sciences webinar entitled Earth Sciences, Enabling a Sustainable Society. My name is Joshua Bomford and I'm a Student Recruitment Officer at the University of Tasmania, and I'll be your host today. Before we introduce our presenter today, may I please remind you of some of our housekeeping. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box and we'll address them after the presentation. This session is also going to be recorded and available for later viewing, so we'll have that provided to you also. Once again, thank you for attending today's webinar. Today we've been lucky enough to be joined by Head of Discipline of Earth Sciences, Sebastian Meffre, who is also the Head of School of Natural Science. Over to you, Sebastian.
Hello. So my name's Sebastian Meffre. And I'm going to tell you about Earth Sciences. In this picture, we've got one of our honours students testing waters in northern Tasmania, and her and Wei Heng, the other students in the background here, will feature throughout these slides and are a fantastic example of the sort of things that our students get up to and do when they study Earth Sciences here at the university. So I'm the head of Earth Sciences here at the university, and my main job here is to lead Earth Sciences, but also to teach students as well as do research. A lot of my research is focused on looking at plate tectonic reconstruction, so the big pictures, how continents move over the world, how they collide, and how they interact. You may think, how does that enable a sustainable society? Well, I'll come to it in a minute. So in my work as reconstructing the plates around the world, part of that is focusing on using that data to predict where ore deposits might form. Ore deposits that can be used to, that mining companies can use for extracting copper or iron or other metals like tantalum and things like that. And as part of that work, whenever we study and we look at ore deposits, we always have to keep in mind that ore deposits and mining, if done in the wrong way, can have a huge impact on the environment, on society, and on people and animals and the health of rivers. And so as part of that work, I started to work on the environmental geology and the mitigation of the impact of mining on the environment. So in fact, most earth scientists these days work across that divide between trying to find new ore deposits and resources, and making sure that the impact is minimized on the environment. At the moment, there is a huge demand for metals because as we are transforming our society to have more electric cars, to have wind turbines, to have solar panels on people's roofs, we are also creating a very large demand on metals that are used in all of these. Recycling those metals helps, but there is actually not enough metals in the world to be able to transform society in the way that we would like to. And so there is a big demand, and with that demand, it's absolutely important that we also manage the potential impact on the environment as a result of those activities. And so that's where scientists have a huge role to play in making sure that whatever we find and whatever we extract from the earth, we also make sure that we don't cause harm to the environment. So that's some of the roles that earth scientists have are in this field. There are also many other roles that earth scientists have, including studying ancient climates to try and see how the Earth has responded to past environmental changes, and to try and use the observation about the past climate to try and predict what will happen in the future in terms of the impact. So that's both the effect of climate change, but also how the Earth has responded, how biology has responded, fossils, what fossils can tell us about what the environment, how the environment has responded to past environmental challenges. So as Earth scientists, we have all sorts of different careers. And here at UTAS, probably 50% of our graduates will go into the mineral exploration or the area of mining. So mineral exploration often means going out into the environment and looking for ore deposits, but these days a lot of that is done with very sophisticated technology, both geochemical technology, so looking at with machines to try and look at the chemistry of the rocks, but also geophysical equipment. So geophysics is on this list here, and geophysical equipment uses sound waves or the magnetic response of rocks or electrical techniques to image what's beneath our feet. And as part of that, to be able not only to find new ore deposits, but sometimes also to find out how stable the ground is beneath the feet and all sorts of things. So I've already talked a little bit about environmental geology, which is what Olivia and Wei Hang are doing here at Little Blue Lake in northern Tasmania, where they're sampling the water, looking at the chemistry of the water and trying to find out whether that water is harmful for swimming in or for drinking and those sort of things. With that water doesn't just flow on the surface of the earth, it also makes its way down underneath in the rocks underneath our feet. And that's this field of groundwater management that is shown here, groundwater management, where, and this is particularly important in arid climates, and a lot of the world has quite arid climates where water is very, very precious, and extracting too much water out of the ground can be quite harmful. So managing the water in the ground, managing how saline it is, how much salt is dissolved in that groundwater, is also a very important job that some of our graduates go into. Some of our graduates go into engineering geology. Engineering geology is looks at how human machines, buildings, bridges, dams, how these structures are going to be impacting on the ground, how stable that ground is, and whether there is any issues with building things and making sure that they don't fall down when you get a lot of rainfall or when you get an earthquake and all of those sort of things. I've already talked about geophysics. Something that people don't often think about is this forensic geology, where there are teams of scientists that look at some of the elements and minerals around the world to help police do their investigations, and it's quite an interesting field. a lot. I've already talked a little bit about past, looking at past climate to try and predict what happens into the future. And this whole field of geohazard management, which can involve trying to make sure to monitor volcanoes, to make sure that if a volcano is going to erupt, that people can be warned well in advance that they have to evacuate an area or move away, or looking at landslides and making sure that people don't get taken out by landslide, predicting the impact of tsunamis on various parts of the world, including here in Tasmania. There's some, even though we are far from plate boundaries where the earthquakes happen, we still can get tsunamis, and we have evidence that we've had tsunamis in the past. So looking at the deposits that are formed by past tsunamis to try and predict tsunamis into the future. So the government here in Tasmania employs people specifically to look at tsunami risks in Tasmania. And there's many other geohazards, and the geohazards field is increasing because we know that with climate change, our storm events and can get more, are probably going to get, in most places in the world, are going to get worse and more impactful. And so this whole geohazard management is very big. There are many earth scientists working for insurance companies looking at how they are making sure that the premiums that we pay for our insurance are realistic of the risk that can be predicted there. So these are all jobs that people tend not to think about when they think of scientists, but there are many out there, and the majority of those jobs are in larger and larger demand these days because of the issue that we're facing with climate change. And so that means that all of our graduates are getting employed at the moment. And last year, every single one had been employed within 3 months of graduating. Tasmania is a fantastic place to study earth sciences. The rocks are really diverse. You don't have to drive very far to see rocks that are really old or really young. Going from, some of these things that I've talked about, tsunamis that are probably only 1,000 years old, to things that are millions and billions of years old, particularly out on the West Coast. The geology is really spectacular. If you look in behind me on my pictures on Zoom that I have here, with my house over here and Wellington in behind, you can see that the rocks feature wherever we look around in Tasmania. We see examples of mountains, rocks, and examples of earth sciences. And so we run excursions in behind my house with our students looking at all the rocks there. There is a large mining industry on the west coast of Tasmania with many mines. Some of these mines have had huge environmental impact, particularly in some of the mining that was done in the 1800s. And that has caused many environmental issues, unfortunately. And we are very much studying many of these old mine sites, including this one here that we're seeing with Olivia and Hang. So we have many studies on these. And there are quite a few geological hazards, including landslips and things that can be studied here in Hobart. And so we have really close links to the industry and the community here in Tasmania. And so many of our projects, including undergraduate research project and honours project, are really focused on real world problems, and are actually, we work with the mining industry, with the government earth scientists to make sure that the student projects are focused on solving these real world problems. So as I've said before, at the moment, earth scientists are in high demand, and that's predicted to continue for probably a decade or so, where we are looking for very much every one of our graduates being employed in various parts of these industries that I've been talking about. So these are some of our students in some of the spectacular outcrops in Tasmania with Joe, Indrani, and Steve. So in the research space, we have a very large research center with around 20 people employed, 20 researchers employed at solving mineral industry problems mostly. So looking at trying to predict where new ore deposits can be found, looking at how to best extract the maximum value and the most elements out of a particular rock, trying to image the rocks to make sure that we know exactly what's in the rocks before they get mined, so we can predict how what issues we will have in the environmental space. And we're very good at bridging this sort of applied to fundamental research space. So the applied research space is the research that will be useful in the next 1 or 2 years for industry or society. The fundamental research is the more blue sky type research, which may be only useful in 20 years' time or may not be useful at all. But it's still worth doing that research because you never know what is going to come around the corner. We have got quite a highly ranked research center with the highest score for impact and engagement in the government-run survey of research. And we've got a very good worldwide ranking in earth sciences. And so to conclude, here's a photo of one of my third-year students on my third-year excursion to Granville Harbour on the west coast. We're looking out down towards South Africa and Antarctica, out beyond the granites that we're seeing here. These are tin granites that have tin mines in them. Just there are little deposits not very far from here. And right in behind us, there's a brand new wind farm as well, just on the other side. And that's really summarizes why Tasmania is a fantastic place to study earth sciences. I'm happy to take any question in the chat.
Thanks, Sebastian. Yeah, some very great points there, particularly around the graduate job outcomes for students as well. I think that's a very important point to take away from today's session. Just while we are waiting some questions to come through from the chat, I'll start off with a fun question. The little blue lake that was pictured in the slideshow, are you able just to tell us why that lake might be so blue?
Yep. So that lake is very acidic, and because of some of the past mining activities there, and some of the minerals have dissolved in there, and those acids are also remobilizing the clay minerals into the water. So they're extracting the clay minerals from the rocks around the little blue lake and dissolving it and making it go into the water. There's still a lot about Little Blue Lake that we don't understand. It's a very complicated environment. Olivia and Wei Hang were doing, Olivia was doing geochemistry, looking at the chemistry of the water. And Mineral Resources Tasmania drilled some holes for her with a drill rig to try and look at the changing chemistry of the water going away from the lake that was going in the groundwater. And Wei Hang was using a ground penetrating radar and various other geophysical equipment to image that acidic water in the subsurface, and then to try and make a model to predict where that water is flowing underground and how it and where it goes down into the rivers. So, yep, very good question.
We are still just awaiting some other questions to come through the chat. Just going back a little bit more to talking about the job outcomes for some of our students. You mentioned a list of careers that students might go into, but do you happen to have like a rough starting salary for some of those who might be entering the workforce?
So in Australia, the mining related jobs, particularly the fly-in, fly-out jobs throughout Australia, and the jobs on the West Coast, we're probably looking at around the starting salary, around the 90,000 Australian dollars per year as a starting salary. With the jobs that are based around the cities and jobs with, for instance, here in Tasmania with Hydro Tasmania, the electricity generator, or with main roads and for engineering geology, or with Mineral Resources Tasmania for resource predictions and things like that. We're probably more looking at the $70,000 starting salary, 70,000 per year.
And just with the students that you highlighted in our slides today, could you give us a little bit of a background on where their studies are at and what they've got onto?
Yep. Olivia's with Hydro Tasmania, so the electricity provider, looking at the stability of various projects related to this Battery of the Nation project. That is a very large project in Tasmania, looking at using the existing hydroelectric dams and pumping water uphill into high reservoirs when electricity is in low demand and there's plenty of electricity in the network, and then letting that water run downhill through the power station when electricity is in high demand and many people are using that electricity. And it's all about mitigating the effects of the renewable energy sector that has fluctuation in the way that energy is produced. And so trying to smooth those fluctuations out. So she's looking at data from drill cores that are on the sides of mountains to look at the stability of tunnels being drilled through the mountains, to look at the stability of the ground beneath the pipes that will take some of this water and doing some of this work. Wei Hang is got a job with a consulting company in the geophysics space, where he probably will be doing small projects where some mining company in Northern Australia is looking for someone to help interpret data about what's underground and looking at interpreting that data, writing reports about that data. But so a lot of these projects are probably 2-3 weeks, a month type project, and then he'll be moving from project to project right around Australia, and when the borders open up again, right around the world, doing consulting geophysics project. Geophysicists are in very high demand at the moment. He, even though he was an international student, he found a job in Australia very easily.
That's just another thing to highlight. I think the amount of the travel that you'll do with the job and the places that you'll see. Again, it's just a positive in that area. Yeah. One of the questions that we do have coming through is, are there any work placements included within the course?
We tend, there are no formal work placement, but we do provide, we do get approached by probably at least 10 different mining companies and other companies through the year, and we flick these emails onto all of our students, and all of the students who do want placement tend to be employed by various companies through that holiday period. So it's not a formal placement, but the majority of students who would like to have some experience in industry are able to write to these companies. Most of the larger mining companies and other engineering companies have dedicated areas on their websites for vacation work, and they have dedicated vacation work programs. And so we feel we leave it up to the students to use their own initiatives, using the context that we provide them to find their own placement.
Yeah, I think that's important to highlight as well, that that the school will help the students locate contacts, but a lot of the work, organising those placements and that informal placement is on the student to organise. We do have another one coming through. How often does a year one student, so a student starting, participate in any of the major projects within the course?
For the year one students, we've had a few get involved with some of these holiday jobs, but very few will actually really get involved with research projects. By year two, we have these summer research scholarships, which are available to year two students, where you can apply and start on the research projects. And year three, we have the possibility of doing a unit, that is a research unit. And then year four is mostly research, around 70% research and 20% or 30% coursework. So that's our structure.
Very good. For students that are outside of Australia currently and that are unable to study face-to-face, how are they commencing at the moment?
At the moment, they're commencing online. So we have a fully online first year. So KEA is a unit code, 101 and 102. Our two first year units that are fully online. We've digitized all of our rock samples. In a lot of videos showing rocks and showing how to identify rocks and minerals in the videos. And then by year two, we are asking, because we have so much field work, we are not able to go online at the moment. That may change depending on what happens next year. But at least for this year, we don't have enough demand from second year students to be able to run a full online delivery. Doing a very good online delivery, particularly for practical things like identifying rocks, looking down the microscope, sitting in the labs and doing experiments, it's very difficult to do it well online. And it's very hard for us to move those sort of really practical tasks online.
Yep. You highlighted as well with the graduates having, for last year, all of them were to be able to receive jobs at the end of once they graduated?
Yep.
Yep.
So a few of them have taken a few months to find work, but there is a lot of work for earth scientists out there, and there will be, that demand will keep increasing. All you have to do is open up any of the stock market or metal price indexes for the last year, whether it's gold, iron, or copper particularly, but also tin and many others are at all-time high in terms of the demand for these metals. So that's what's driving it. And then we're also driving the environmental side very much. And as I've said, plus the insurance and the hazard side are all really being affected, and by what's happening in society is really affecting earth science jobs.
And I guess, well, as well, with the amount of jobs in the industry, that would also feed down to the informal work placements. So the students would actually find it quite easy to find placements,
Absolutely.
given the amount of demand.
I'm getting emails saying we haven't had anyone apply. Can you try and convince your students to apply?
Very good. We haven't had any more questions come in just now. We will just leave it a quick moment in case anyone has any last questions. But Sebastian, was there anything that you would like just to pass on to the listeners today, just to for them to have something to take away from the session today?
Yep. So if you are thinking of studying earth sciences and you think it's a possible career choice, please enroll in our first year online units, even if you are overseas. I'm pretty sure that the way the vaccinations are rolling out at the moment, that there will be some travel available, and we'd love to see people come into earth sciences and and engage with some of the things that I've been talking about this afternoon.
Perfect. No, that's fantastic. We haven't had any more questions come in just now, so we might wrap up this session. If anyone does have any questions later on, please email them through or give us a call. Happy to have a chat and discuss anything that you might have. And as well, this presentation will be sent out as well. So you will have a copy of this and it will be accessible on our website. So yeah, please feel free to go through the session again and send any questions through. So just want to thank you, Sebastian, for the presentation today. It was very lots of content there, lots of good stories. So it's great to hear.
No worries. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No problem.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, everyone.